earlier this month, as well as the release of a number of political detainees. While recognizing challenges, I look forward to assisting the authorities in furthering respect for the human rights of all in Ethiopia. I welcome Armenia's recent decision to enable the office to contribute more effectively to upholding the rights of Armenia's people, including its invitation to provide technical assistance through a presence of our staff on the ground. I again commend Tunisia for its extensive cooperation with the office and special procedures and its establishment of a national monitoring and reporting framework to strengthen engagement with the treaty bodies. OHCHR has unconditional access to all areas of the country, including to prisons, and the official visit of 12 mandate holders has been fully facilitated by the government since it extended a standing invitation to special procedures in 2011. In Moldova, my office and mandate holders have recently been given access to the Transnistria region. I am hopeful that we will see deeper engagement with the office and the UN, and I encourage other states in a similar context in Europe and worldwide to review and build on these good practices. Breaking with 15 years of refusals of visits by the special procedures, Uzbekistan received the mandate holder on freedom of religion or belief in October 2017, and in May, Parliament adopted a roadmap on implementing his recommendations. The UN country team has also received the government's approval for a project by UNDP supporting follow-up to UPR recommendations, and I understand that the authorities have rolled back a number of restrictions on civil society activity. Libya, following my visit to Tripoli in October, accepted its first ever mission from a mandate holder, the Special Rapporteur on the Human Rights of Internally Displaced Persons, and other mandate holder visits are planned should the security situation allow. Libya has also co-sponsored this Council's Resolution 37/45, which encourages monitoring and reporting by UNSMO on human rights violations and abuses in the country and calls for cooperation with human rights mechanisms. The recent decision to redeploy UN staff to Tripoli should also open the door for greater access across the country. The Council may also wish to note the deployment of human rights advisors to Belarus and Zimbabwe, two countries where there have been access issues in the past. Mr. President, people do not lose their human rights by virtue of crossing a border without a visa. I deplore the adoption by many countries of policies intended to make themselves as inhospitable as possible by increasing the suffering of many already vulnerable people. In recent weeks, I have become increasingly alarmed by two issues regarding access for civil society organizations to migrants. In Hungary, I'm deeply concerned about a bill presented to Parliament last month, which, if adopted, would effectively criminalize human rights monitoring at borders and within border zones, as well as criminalizing the provision to migrants of information, legal aid, and assistance. The bill would also eliminate or impede judicial review in many cases. It is essential that independent monitoring bodies, including not only all international human rights bodies, but also national human rights institutions and civil society, be able to monitor the human rights situation of migrants without fear or obstruction. These prohibitions and related measures adopted by the government of Hungary in recent months stigmatize and harm migrants in vulnerable situations and those who seek asylum, as well as punishing the admirable work of human rights defenders who seek to help them. In the United States, I'm deeply concerned by recently adopted policies which punish children for their parents' actions. In the past 6 weeks, nearly 2,000 children have been forcibly separated from their parents. The American Association of Pediatrics has called this cruel practice government-sanctioned child abuse, which may cause irreparable harm with lifelong consequences. The thought that any state would seek to deter parents by inflicting such abuse on children is unconscionable. I call on the United States to immediately end the practice of forcible separation of these children, and I encourage the government to at last ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child in order to ensure that the fundamental rights of all children, whatever their administrative status, will be at the center of all domestic laws and policies. Mr. President, we request access so we can better work to help bring states' laws and practices in line with the commitments which they themselves have made. Every decision to engage more productively with the human rights system is a decision to create openings towards a more harmonious society, one where there is greater justice, more sustainable peace, and better development. I am heartened by the new areas where access has been achieved over the past year. It is not easy to highlight conflicts which have been averted, violations which have been warded off, and spiraling violence that has been interrupted and diminished. But every step towards greater implementation of the human rights agenda is an act of prevention which gathers and strengthens the bonds between communities and reinforces inclusive development and peace. I am convinced that the human rights ideal has been the most constructive movement of ideas in our era and among the most successful. Over the past 70 years, a sustained peace has been achieved in and between many societies. Conflicts have been resolved with respect and through law. A vastly increased number of people have been able to meaningfully express their views and access education, healthcare, and opportunities for development without discrimination. Some may take these achievements for granted, but they are the enactment of policies and laws that uphold the universal principles of human dignity and equality, and they are not the norm. Every society's history is bloody with conflict and deprivation. We need only look back a little way to grasp the dangers which our work averts. When leaders undermine human rights and human rights law, this is in no way an act of patriotism. They are eroding the structures which can ensure the safety of their people, pitching their societies backwards into violence, destruction, exploitation, and disaster. They are recreating the rule of brute force and exploitation within countries and between them. True patriotism consists in viewing every state and humanity as a whole as a community of mutual responsibility with shared needs and goals. True patriotism consists of the work of creating tolerant communities which can live in peace. I depart an office which is strong, absolutely committed to its gargantuan task, and which, in the face of heavy headwinds, has made progress. These new areas of access are a testament to the credibility of our operations and the justice of our cause. I remain convinced that the monitoring and reporting we have achieved, our capacity building for civil society and states, and our clear, steady, and impartial advocacy have been significant contributors to governance that is more inclusive and respectful of the rights of people, societies which are more peaceful, and development that is broader, deeper, and of more benefit to all. Finally, Mr. President, I wish to end my last statement in this formal setting with a series of acknowledgements. This is the hardest, most challenging, most fulfilling responsibility I have held. It has been hard on my family and it has affected my relationship with the government of the country of my birth, the country I had the honor of representing diplomatically for so many years. And it makes me sad this is so. However, this price is small in comparison to that paid by so many human rights defenders and civil society more broadly, who sacrifice so much more again and again, and who to me are the real heroes, genuine heroes of the human rights movement. Similarly, I hold in high regard those members of my office, both international and national staff, who work in some of the most dangerous and difficult parts of the world. This Council needs to recognize what they do. We owe them a very special gratitude. It has also been an honor for me to work with my brilliant deputy, Kate Gilmore, an exceptional and courageous leader in her own right, and from whom I have learned a great deal. I have also benefited greatly from the advice and support of Assistant Secretary General Andrew Gilmore, drawn from his extensive knowledge of the UN, and thank him for his leadership. To all the directors led by Adam Abdelmoula, Georgette Gagnon, and Peggy Hicks, and all the senior officials of whom there are too many to name, I admire all of you and thank you too, as well as all the professional and national staff here in Geneva, those in our New York office, in the regional offices and country presences. I owe you all my gratitude. To my spokesperson, Rupert Colville, and his hard-working team, I feel a special indebtedness to you for your extraordinary work. And then there is Ruth Marshall, who has been my amazing speechwriter and from whom it would be difficult to separate. We have been operating in each other's heads for the last 4 years. I thank also all those in the front office led by the incomparable Marit Kohonen Sharif, supported by Cecile Aptel, both of whom I conferred with almost every day in the last 4 years, as I did with my old friend Anton Nikiforov, as well as with Cecilia Canessa, Carol Ray, and Katayun Vasali. All of you have been close family to me. To my security officers, I'm especially grateful for your warmth, dedication, and professionalism, and to many other staff, too numerous to name, whose commitment and dedication to their work for human rights drives them to work day and night to further the cause. I salute you. And finally, to my brother, Mohammed Linsour, who accompanied me from New York via Amman and has been with me every step of the way and will always remain a very special friend. Thank you. I also wish to acknowledge all the ambassadors and their staffs here. The personal friendship and support of so many diplomats who, notwithstanding their official positions, understand what it is we are trying to do has been deeply meaningful to me. And as I close out my last 2.5 months, I am very keen to reunite with my wife, Sarah, and our 3 children. Without their love for this strange man, it is impossible for me to see how I could have managed the stresses of this position. I hope I have made them proud. For soon, to borrow from the poetry of Robert Louis Stevenson, this hunter shall be home from the hill. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you, High Commissioner, very much for your report.